Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today I wanted to make a short video. Well, my videos are never technically very short, but I will try on how I rate books and explaining why I rate books, which sounds like a bit absurd, but I kind of wanted to clarify that by me rating books, I don't want to assume that my rating always necessarily compares or means that the rating goes with the actual quality of a book, because at the end of the day, books are very subjective, and what I might rate as a 2 stars, you guys might have rated as a 5 stars, which is completely fine. And so I keep that in mind, that my rating, and that's why I always do my from least enjoyed to the most enjoyed, doesn't necessarily reflect objective quality, because I might have given 4 stars to a book that, if you compare with a classic or compare it to an author that's renowned for her or his beautiful writing, it might not compare well. So what I've given 4 stars to, it's maybe simply written, or it's just written nicely, but it's not the end of the world the way it's written, but still for me it's a 4 stars. I might sometimes read a book from that masterful writer and rate it like as a 2 stars, because overall I hated it. So that's what I mean with objective quality. I think I am recognizing, if you want, the fact that my rating, my enjoyment of a book doesn't necessarily look at every aspect of a book, from the plot to the characters to the writing, and combines them. It usually goes either because of I found something very important that book did for me or taught me, or because I overall enjoyed it. I just thought I wanted to clarify this thing, that just share that I am aware that this is just my rating, and just say that it might not be objectively reflecting on the quality of the book. I also wanted to say that I think it's important at the same time for me to still give my rating, because I assume that if you are following me, if you are like subscribed to the channel, you kind of trust my reviews in a sense that you might have seen some before, you've seen, oh, we love the same books, or we tend to love the same books, so I kind of trust your judgment, which is what I do usually with the booktubers that I follow. Or sometimes I follow somebody just because I have such conflicting opinions from mine that it's actually fun, and it's kind of a way of confronting opinions and seeing things from another perspective for me. So it kind of goes both ways. So I still think that by me rating the books according to my own rating system, which I'm going to explain in a second, makes sense, because that's why I'm here doing reviewing books. As someone who's read all their life, I'm not in the book industry. I don't work in publishing. I don't work in anything that has to do with this sort. So I don't read professionally. That's not my job. However, I am someone who's read all their life, and it's my greatest hobby. So that's why I wanted to share. So that's why I rate books, basically. And also I wanted to say that the only books I don't tend to rate are usually non-fiction biographies, because at the same time, for how much I can hate or love one, I still think that it's not my place to rate someone else's journey. And I always admire, even when I don't like the writing of a book itself, that someone has opened up enough to put a book out. That's the only books I don't tend to rate. So in terms of how I rate books, so I'm gonna keep it very simple and just say, these are my parameters, if you want, more or less. So I tend to give 1 star to the books that I'm honestly offended that they exist. There are not many books got 1 star from me. I'm not too harsh of a judge, just because I think with the years I've become very skillful, if you want, and researching books, hearing other people's reviews, reading synopses, and deciding this is for me, this is not for me. So I tend to stay clear of things that are very much out of my comfort zone, in the sense that I know that I might hate them. So it doesn't happen often, but it did. Like recently with Gothicana, I hated that book. I don't think that book should be a thing, and that's why I give it 1 star. So the 1 star for me is literally, don't think this book should be a thing. So 1 star for me, it's horrible. It's the ones that I would give 0 stars, but I wanted, if I gave 0 stars, it's some looking on Goodreads like I didn't put a rating, but I kind of wanted to make my opinion heard, if it makes sense. 2 stars are books that I really disliked. However, I don't have an issue with them existing, if it makes sense. So I might give 2 stars to a very popular book. I still understand that other people might love it, and I didn't, and I had a lot of issues with that book, but I don't necessarily think that that book shouldn't be a thing. I think there's still an audience, even if it wasn't me. And there might be a book with horrible writing, but a plot that might work for somebody. And finally, with my 2 stars, there must be something that didn't click well with me, something that I am ultimately against. Maybe that, you know, they do a scene and they don't treat one thing the way I thought they should treat it, and I found that was kind of offensive. So the fact that it has some objective qualities doesn't take away the fact that I might hate something about that book, and that's why it's a 2 stars. So I do have a grudge on something usually when I give 2 stars. I just don't think that my grudges necessarily should be considered as, oh, this book shouldn't be a thing. My 3 stars are usually what I consider boring books. So books that, in my opinion, might have good writing, might have a plot that was okay, was definitely there, but it was just not for me, ultimately, in the sense that I didn't have a grudge, I didn't have something that I particularly hated about it, or it would be probably a 2 stars, but I also didn't find interesting, and ultimately, like, I closed the book and they didn't leave me with anything. So it was just a meh, was okay. Overall, though, I kind of wasted a bit of my time. Now, this is a bit different with my 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars is where maybe I found most of the book boring. However, toward the end, or in the middle, or at the beginning, there was an interesting part, something that has captured me, or maybe I can really see the potential of that book. Usually it's the first option. Usually there is a part of the book that I really enjoyed, would be like a 4 or 5.5, and then it goes downhill, so you might get like a 3.5 because of the bad and the good combined. So usually it's that thing, but there were occasions where I gave 3.5 stars because that book was nothing special. I bet I could see the plot coming together in other books, or at least I had hope. So I might give it a 3.5. 4 stars are the books that I overall truly enjoyed, books that I am excited to potentially read the sequel, or that even if I decide not to go ahead with it, they usually are books that make me either excited about reading them, or they make me tense, or they make me laugh a lot, or that they make me wanting, like, I was glued to the pages. So the plot was a new thing. Usually are things that they still give me that novelty value, that because I've read so much, a lot of the books I read, they feel pretty much the same. So usually 4 stars are books that do feel fresh for me, and then they hold my attention, that they didn't have slow parts, or if I had, the redeeming parts were so then exciting that it was more than 3.5, if it makes sense overall. Books tend to have like good writing overall, or like not horrible writing if you want. They tend to be like in the genre that I love, or there might be a genre that I'm not very comfortable with, but because they kept me so glued to the pages, I still give it 4 stars. So for me to give a book that's out of my comfort zone 4 stars is a very high rating. It probably, that book, like, I don't know, for example, dystopians, I really don't like the genre. It's not my cup of tea, and I don't know why I insist reading it sometimes. So if a dystopian for me gets 4 stars, it's extremely high, because it would probably not reach a 5 stars anyway, just because it's not what I love, if it makes sense. And so 4 stars for me, it's probably my most given rating, based on either enjoyment, as I said, or respect. Like, I've given 4 stars to books before, as I'd give 5 stars to books that maybe, especially non-fiction sometimes, that are not biographies, because of those I don't rate, but non-fiction that packed such a punch, or books that were so touching, or were discussing in topics that I might not necessarily have a good time while reading them, but at the same time I thought they were so important just to exist. So I had, you know, kind of recently, for example, I don't know, I think I gave it 4 stars to Asking for It, which was a book tackling, you know, rape culture and what happens to, you know, the victim sometimes. And although I didn't agree with a lot of parts of the end of that book, and although it was an horrible experience in the sense that it was so hard for me to read through those pages, I gave it, that book, ultimately 4 stars despite the ending. Unpacking that in my wrap-up, but also because ultimately that's a book that does something that is still very important for non-survivors, as I said, to open your eyes. So that's why I say, like, out of respect, like, you know, there are some books I get 4 stars because I think objectively our books are very extremely important. 5 stars, I think it comes without much explanation. 5 stars are books that I love. Usually are books that makes me emotional, again because maybe I've read so much. I don't tend to get very excited or extremely excited as it was, maybe because also now I'm an adult, and when you are a bit younger I was definitely getting more excited about plot and characters than I am now. I think I'm just digesting books in a different way. I don't mean that now I enjoy reading less, but it's very hard for me to find a book where I feel like I cannot put it down. I need to know, I don't want to eat, I just want to read. And again, both comes with being an adult and managing my time differently, but also having learned to read things differently. So if a book, it's for me impossible to put down, and only one book so far in the year has done that for me, and you will have to wait probably for my end of the year favorite if you don't want to go back throughout my wrap-ups. If it's a book, that's an automatic 5 stars because it just happens once a year, if it does. It's usually just one book a year that makes me feel like I don't want to eat, I don't want to sleep, I just need to know what happens, and I consume that book so fast. So usually that would be a 5 stars, just because of it's still making me feel like I was when I was a teen, reading and getting so excited, which is something that now, because it's so rare, I value and treasure a lot when it does happen. Or I might give a 5 stars for, usually it's a non-fiction that I might tend to give a 5 stars where there is not that level of excitement, and I might give a 5 stars because of the content of that non-fiction, because of how interesting, how much I learned from that thing, and how interesting ultimately I thought it was, or important. And finally, I might give a 5 stars even if I don't have that emotional, I couldn't sleep attachment to the book. I might find that the plot and the writing and the characters were so masterfully crafted, and that everything came together so perfectly that objectively, in that sense, I couldn't give it any less. There are some epic fantasy that I've read and just like, I cannot in good conscience, even if I wasn't pulling my hair out, as I might have for another book that I read, I cannot in all good conscience give anything less than 5 stars, because I have to sit back and just admire what this author did. So it's admiration or excitement, teen excitement, I would say, when you get a 5 stars from me. I think that's all that I want to share. Let me know how rating works for you guys, if you can resonate a tiny bit with what I said about how I rate things, if it does make sense. Hopefully I have made sense, because I've spoken so much today and for work, so I hope words have not failed me. But I just wanted to clarify, because I've been doing my wrap-ups from least enjoyable to the most enjoyable one read for me, and I think some people might have seen like very popular books or very books that are loved by everyone in very lower places, because my enjoyment was not that high, but I could recognize the quality of it. So I would just wanted to clarify, or you might have seen that I gave a higher rating to a book that comes before something that I've rated less, but it's higher up in the list of my enjoyment. So I think this hopefully clarifies. Also, the wrap-ups are done at the end of the month, and so I've noticed, and I guess that's valuable for many people out there, that your opinions about books change, and that when I compile my list at the end of the month, I always look at what has stuck with me also. So I might bump up something if I kept thinking about the book over and over, or if it was still very fresh in my mind. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care. Ciao!